This is Pioneer Field Agronomist Scott Everskirt with a weekly agronomy report. In the cornfields this past week, definitely seeing this first planted corn really take off, entering that what we call that grand growth stage. Corn really advancing quickly, will advance as much as one leaf every 3 days. With that rapid growth, what we also got to keep in mind now is we're going to enter that stage where the crop becomes somewhat vulnerable to brittle snap or early root lodging if we were to happen to get any storms to come through. Once we get to tasseling, we get to the reproductive stage, that vulnerability, that risk definitely goes down. And looking at some corn this week, some of the yellow corn and some of the early planted corn still trying to recover from those saturated soils and digging up a lot of those plants, finding plants with maybe less hair roots. Obviously, hair roots is where the absorption of the nutrients and water takes place. Those plants starting now to turn around, seeing the new growth coming out, turning green, and finally starting to grow a little bit with the more favorable conditions we've had here the last week. As we look at the first crop beans, definitely now a lot of those been in the ground 3 to 4 weeks. Be a great idea to make sure you're staying on top of the weeds and make sure now at 21 to 28 days after planting that a lot of the first herbicide applications get made to those fields. And again, make sure you're adding another layer of residual herbicide as well with a post product to keep the weeds at bay season long. Also this week we got wheat harvest started. Early reports of some basically really good yields, above average yields, and early reports of very good quality as well. So it looks like wheat harvest, the wheat crop made it through the wet spring we had, the freeze scare we had, and going to turn out to be a pretty decent crop. Again, harvest timely for the best quality of wheat. Try and avoid getting this wheat re-wetted several times after it gets dry, although if you pay attention to the 10-day forecast, doesn't look like that's going to be a problem. Looks like the forecast calling for more warm and dry weather over the next 7 to 10 days. As it relates to planting the last of the beans and planting double crops, this past Sunday we did see some storms roll through the area. Some areas getting some pretty heavy rains, 3 to 4 inches. Other areas getting nothing. So as you're planting these last beans, especially the double crops, if you did get an area where it got substantial rain and those soils are wet, with the forecast we're looking at being pretty warm and dry, don't mud those beans in. Let them give that soil an extra 2 or 3 days to kind of dry out. Slicing them in the mud and then turning hot and dry will not be a good thing for the development of those little bean plants trying to get out of there. And consequently, if you got any first crop or any non-double crop later planted beans, the same way. Again, get those soils dried out a little bit, because if the rain does shut off, having those things slitted in the mud will not be a good thing. So, as always, if you have any questions, please contact your local Pioneer sales rep. Thanks.